Closure interview, take one.
Hi, I'm Matthew Potchus. I'm the writer and director of our new short film, Closure. The seed of the idea for this one, for Closure, was after making my first short film, I really wanted to make something like real, something a little more mature and down to earth, something a little more digestible. So the idea came from a real life experience that I had where I was kind of far from civilization. I had a flat tire, I hit a pothole, and my phone died as I was trying to call for help. And I ended up having to walk a great distance to get somebody to come bring me a spare tire because I didn't have one. And as I'm walking down the road, I thought this is a really interesting idea for a short film. Like this is cinema right now. It's happening. So once I had that idea, I just kind of expanded to where would I be going and where would I not want to be going if I had only one option. And I thought maybe an ex's house that I didn't get along with, that would be somewhere where I really didn't want to go. So that's where that idea came from. So Closure is something that I think everybody deserves to get in a relationship, but that not everybody gets. I'm not the type of person where if I cut ties with somebody, I never want to talk to them again. I always think there's something valuable, and it gets to me whenever I hear stories of friends and family or whoever who don't want to seek that out and they just want to bury it. And I think that to live a true and meaningful and fulfilling life, you have to dig into the grittiness of whether it's coming to terms with what you did or what somebody else did, because there's always something to be learned there, and you're never going to know. It could be also a beautiful moment too, so kind of denying yourself that and the other person, I never really saw the point of that. So with this short film, I really want to hold a mirror up to people and to show them that good things can come from getting closure. And if there's one thing I can get the audience to take away from watching this film, is to call that person. Every single person when they watch this is going to have that one person in mind, and it would be nice to make an impact on people and for them to learn from this film and think maybe it's not that hard, maybe I should reach out, and who knows, maybe some beautiful relationships can bloom from that and some new meaning and new direction in their life. So writing this script was a challenge in the way that I did have an idea of where I wanted it to go, but I didn't want to follow the thread of when you're writing, you kind of come up with a scene in your head that you could add later on, like, oh, this would be cinematic or this would look good on camera. For the challenge that I gave myself for this script was that what would really happen? What would I do next? So I really wanted to keep it real and kind of logical, right? Because I think that's where the true beauty in cinema is the closer you can get to reality. That's the most beautiful thing is the reality that we live in and the truthfulness of that. So it wasn't so much, this would be a cool dramatic scene that the characters can go through. The mindset was literally, what would happen next? What is the most likely scenario? Yeah, so the majority of the film is pretty naturalistic in the way that it's shot and the lighting. It's true to the way that the script was written. It's very, there's no tripods, there's no crazy lighting setups. It's all super naturalistic. And I think that when you introduce these cinematic techniques like the split screen and the montage at the end, that really, compresses their time together, and it really shows how much of a good time they're having. It kind of encapsulates their relationship. I think inserting those small moments of higher production and showing off a little bit more technique, it really enhances the realism. And I think they go really well together because you're going from handheld the whole time. Everything is pretty diegetic. Everything that's happening on set is really what we're capturing, and then it just takes a turn, and it's you see a split screen, which is obviously not realistic. You never see two people's things, but holding a mirror up to that and showing some more moving imagery right after seeing some realistic imagery, I think it really just it enhances the realism in the other parts, and it makes them stand out a lot more, because on a low budget like this, we could make everything impactful. We could make every single shot, really hit home and be super beautiful in every way, but that's not real life. Real life is not always beautiful. So if we just can kind of compress it into a couple places, we're working with what we got. It's going to make everything else flow together and, kind of make a cohesion and a balance between, struggling with a small production and not a lot of money, and seeing what we can do with the little resources we have. Working with new people, that is always going to be a challenge, but and you're never going to see eye to eye perfectly, especially somebody who you are working with for the first time. So I think having a change in mindset of not how can I mold this person into my style or get them to do what I want to do. I think it's a lot more beneficial if you turn that thinking on its head and think, what can this person bring and what can this person offer, and leaning into that. I think it really will benefit your production. For instance, working with the actors, rather than sticking to my guns and directing the actors, and I want them to say everything that I want to say. I want every line delivery and every little micro movement to be what I saw in my head. Rather than that, she has her own things that she can offer, right? And she was the way that she talked to the actors, I could never do that. And so she had a unique angle to bring in on this production, and I think it really paid off, just giving her a little bit of space to do what she wants to do and to help out in the way that she can. And some of my favorite moments from the short came from giving her the space to work her art as well, right? So just like the scene outside with them fighting, I wanted it originally in my head to be a little more subdued. So it was a little more dramatic, it was a little more somber, but the way that she can connect with the actors and allow the actors to connect in themselves and feel these real emotions. She didn't say be more angry. She didn't say be more this. She just kept asking the actors, what do you feel? How are you feeling right now? What would you do? And to allow that emotion to come out. And I think that was a lot more, if I'm going to preach all this true to reality and naturalistic filmmaking, I think that's the proper approach, right? Is what the actors feel, because that's way more real than what I had in my head. And so it's always a challenge working with new people, but just be open to be open to the challenges and the getting to know somebody else, right? It's not a wrench in your machine, and even if it is a wrench in your machine, it's a good thing. It's going to get you out of your headspace and your normal way of doing things, because if you're just taking over and you're totally directing the narrative and every single facet of the production, right? You're not challenging yourself, right? So that's where all the best things in productions come from, is when you're challenging yourself and you're thinking outside the box and problem solving. I think the only way to achieve naturalism is just through honesty, right? We're in it for nothing but the passion, right? This was made for literally $0 other than a couple boxes of pizza, some hot dogs, and some handshakes. So there's no way that it can't be natural, and it can't be honest. And I think when you start to introduce a bigger budget, a bigger crew, and the idea starts getting filtered through so many hands, it's hard to keep it honest, and it's hard to keep it natural, right? We want to keep the idea as pure as it can be. And I think being able to make these films by ourselves without the permission or the funding of anybody, it just allows the product to be less strained. It's unfiltered. It's closer to the original idea, because like I said, the minute that anybody else touches it, you kind of lose something from that idea. And also the values are a little different, right? In Hollywood, they could try to make the most real and down to earth and closest to reality film that they can, but reality isn't always pretty. It isn't always beautiful, and reality won't sell. So they have to change some things in the idea, and they have to add some things to the idea, and it just taints it. This film was shot in the Dogma 95 style, not exactly following all the rules per se, because we like to take the ideas from these movements like mumblecore and Dogma 95 and incorporate them in a new way, because we're kind of at a crossroads right now in filmmaking where you need so much money, and you just need so many things, and these movements are all about not needing anything, just the purest expression of filmmaking, right? So in those regards, what we did take away was, we're not asking anybody's permission to do these films. We're not gonna need any money. So adding those obstructions in the filmmaking process really did change the film in a way that I think made it super unique. For instance, like we didn't shoot on like a tripod for a single shot. There was some shots where like the camera was sitting on the ground, or it was sitting on something that spins to get that scene in the montage. But yeah, we were able to move so fast, and that ties in with the money as well, right? So it's like a lot of short films, there's a lot bigger of a production, a lot more complicated camera movements and lighting setup, so it takes a lot of time, and time is money, and we don't have a lot of money, but we have all the time in the world. So not being on a tripod, we were able to move so fast. We shot probably 20 minutes of footage in about 16 hours, 2 8-hour days, and not lighting it in any complex way was the same thing. We didn't have to strip down every time we changed angles or reversed. We were just able to turn around and shoot. It took 2 seconds, right? So doing that, it allows us to be a lot more free and really focus on the blocking and the performances. Like for instance, for the split screen montage, it's logistically like that would cost a lot of money, in blocking it and choreographing that and making sure everything is perfect. But since it was lit with just whatever we had in the room, and we didn't have the cameras on tripods or anything, it was totally handheld. We were able to just move around and figure it out. We improvised both of those movements, and in under an hour we had both of those shot, and that is like unheard of in the Hollywood system or in a bigger production. And same with the montage sequence as well. Like that was lit by one lamp, right? And this is supposed to be the pinnacle of the whole production and the whole story, and that's where all the money should be spent. But literally just one lamp, and we were able to do like as many takes as we want, and it was just it turned out really, really amazing. I think my favorite scene would probably be the ending where they're driving away and we see the dog Leo watching them from the window, just because it's so lighthearted, and it's such a sweet, innocent moment, just seeing the dog. And they always say never work with children and never work with animals, and so far I've done both of those things in my 2 short films. But I think it adds a production value and some realism that you wouldn't get shooting something for low budget, and let alone no budget. So just being able to, it was such a good time, just knocking on the window, trying to get Leo to look outside, and just it was such a challenge, but it's so much fun, right? And that's why we're here, is for the love of it and just to have fun. And like, how can you take yourself seriously when you got 10 people outside jumping up and down, like waving their hands, trying to get the attention of this dog? Like, it's just so silly, but it really does encapsulate like the whole vibe and the whole purpose of making these films. Like, it's fun, it's a little bit sad and a little bit funny, like just like all of us. And I think that was probably the most fun that I had. Plus it was it was the last shot, so we ended the production on a good note. I think when casting, it's less important to find somebody who's exactly how you imagined in your head and closest to the character than it is to find somebody that you really get along with, and somebody who really embodies the character. And even writing the characters around people that you already have in mind, because that also just adds that extra bit of realism and honesty to the character, right? Like when it comes to Jacob, you know, he's the go-to guy for whenever I need a character, right? And so rather than just having an image of the character that I want in my head and finding somebody who's close enough, you know, I wrote the character around Jacob and around his mannerisms and around, you know, the way that he looks at life and how he feels. And it was really easy actually to formulate this character with him, because, you know, I know him personally, right, and we're friends, and I know everything that he's going through. So I was able to tug on his heartstrings from his real experiences. And I think, you know, it doesn't matter what the person looks like, or it doesn't matter, you know, their acting capabilities. It's for me, it's getting that product of realism at the end of the day. And you know, just casting your friends. And same thing with Emily, right? She's a great friend. I've seen how she's worked before. I know she can act, and yeah, just getting to know her as well and incorporating some of her views of the world and where she is in life into that character as well. I think that just creates a real honesty, and it doesn't hurt that they're friends in real life as well, right? So they're both able to use that to their advantage in the film. I think that the biggest takeaway that I learned in filming Closure is to maybe take your hands off the wheel a little bit and allow your collaborators to help you out. Because if you have a vision and it might not work, or you have like a feeling that it might not work, and there's, you know, the universe and everything is telling you all these obstacles are in the way, and rather than just, you know, trying to brute force it and make this idea work just for the sake of, I don't know, maybe your ego, you know, it's a lot more beneficial than just to go with the flow, you know, the ebbs and flows of how the project changes, and be open to change. Because yeah, there's no use fighting it, right? It's much easier to just let go and go, okay, so how can we change this idea? You know, be open to the input of other people, because, you know, every time somebody touches your project, it does change it. But I think there is a healthy balance where if you allow all of your closest collaborators to, you know, get their hands on it, and hopefully they're all like-minded people like yourself, and, you know, it'll definitely change it for the better. Because there's no point of, if you already know that an idea is not going to work, you might as well just change it and just be open to that. Like, you can be a tyrant and you can, you know, whip your crew into getting your vision or getting as close as you can to your vision. But I think it's a lot more beneficial to everybody if you just are open to how the project is going to change, because it's going to change whether you want to or not. So just be open to that, the long term, right? It's, you know, every day you're going to feel a little bit different about it. So just don't be so, you know, thick-skulled. Just let it change and be open to the change. Because if you're making it, and if the friends who are around you are helping you make it, and they're all like-minded, it's going to be a product of you no matter what. It doesn't matter who touches it. I think what makes a moment cinematic is it's the same root that makes a moment poetic, right? And that's what cinema is. And something that's cinematic is, it's just, to me at least, you know, cinema is poetry on the screen. That's what I think it is. And a moment that's cinematic is a moment that's poetic, right? You know, it wasn't cinematic when I was walking away from my car to get help when I had a flat tire, because, you know, the lights were beautiful, or, like, you know, the image was pleasing. It was what was happening. It was poetic. It's like just the series of events and the sequence of it was just hilarious. And I think that mindset is what makes a moment cinematic, right? Like, I'm looking for poetry in life, for, you know, the way that events unfold in an interesting way, that it's kind of unexplainable, but it's something that even if the person watching hasn't experienced before, they just get it. Because cinema is something that's kind of innate in all of us, and same with poetry as well, right? Just it could be many things, like the juxtaposition of, like, light and dark, or, you know, happy and sad. Those are the things that I think work best on screen, because they're cinematic, because they're also poetic. I think a good director isn't going to be pigeonholed to being just a director, right? Even though that's their title, it's hard to say what makes a good director, but what makes a not so great director is maybe somebody who just sticks to the role that they're gonna see on the credit screen, which is director, and they're not involved in the process in any way. They're just telling people what to do and whatnot. But a really good director is going to be involved in every single process and care about every other facet of the filmmaking process other than just directing, right? Because I don't know, I have such a problem with people who want to just direct, right? It's the way that the industry is set up is there's so much red tape and there's so much things that you can't do, and I think that really takes away from everything, right? Like some of the greatest films of all time are by directors who do way more than just direct, right? Like they help the actors in any way they can. They talk with the editor, with the sound person. They're open to all kinds of collaboration, right? You can, just like Christopher Nolan or James Cameron, like they're involved in every single aspect of filmmaking. But just being a director and just sitting in the chair, not leaving like Video Village, like I think that's laziness. And if they're clearly not in it for the passion and they're not in it for the story of the project they're working on, so what is even the point? I think if you're not gonna follow that passion and try to touch every single part of the project and bring everybody up with you and delegate in a fair and humanistic way, then there's no point of doing it, because it's going to show in the product for sure, right? Everybody's been on a set where the 12th hour hits and it's wrap up, nobody's talking, everybody just goes home right away. But being a director is a lot more than just being in charge of what's on the screen. It's what's happening on the set, how everybody's feeling, right? And I think a really good director is the ringleader who keeps everybody in good spirits and does whatever it takes, even if it's sacrificing a little piece of their vision just for everybody to get along and to make the story happen. Yeah, the post-production was a lot of fun. I think that's when the film starts, right? Like after you've shot everything in your editing bay or in your software, that's really when the fun starts, and you get to really change things around, and where the meaning really sets in, right? Because you have all these images and now it's your job to put them all together in a certain way. And even if you have a solid vision, you go, this is exactly how I saw it in my head, this is how I want it. Once you actually see everything set out in front of you, you're faced with like limitless possibilities of how to sequence these and how to set them all in a timeline. So I think being open to the way that it could possibly change in editing is super important, right? Because if you're just like, oh, I want to keep every single second of it in and put it, and not mess with it, it can really hurt your project. Like a good example of that is in the beginning when Jacob's character Nathan is on the phone and he's trying to call for a tow or whatever he might be doing. That was originally a one shot when he closes the trunk and he takes out his phone, talks on the phone for a while, and then he walks away. But it really takes you out of the story. And so I think just having the courage to really trim down your project and not be so attached to the footage, and just keep in your mind that your goal is to make the best piece of art that you can. So just trimming a lot of that out, honestly, like, and finding a creative way to advance the story and still keep the similar vibe and the similar feeling was a really fun challenge. And in the same way as originally we had, after the car broke down, we had Emily, Carly, we had their character, we showed them for a bit, and it kind of distracted us though from the plight and the journey of our main character. So once we kind of toyed around with that, and I was not anticipating cutting that out. I really thought it was an interesting thing to show, to kind of split the POV and the weight between two characters perfectly. But it just didn't help the story in this sense. It hurt it. So cutting out this quick scene of Emily really allowed us to stay with Jacob's character a lot, and you know, it really like galvanized his feelings, not cutting away from him, just staying with him. We didn't forget how he felt and what he's going through, so it really helped the flow a lot, and just being able to let go of your feelings and your emotions towards the footage and allowing it to transform itself. I didn't really have anything planned for that. I think, you know, I really like to embrace spontaneity and improvisation in my work. So I came to Pierre and all I had was 4 jazz chords, and I just played them for him and I said, this is kind of along the lines I want. And he's a much better musician than me, so I just let him take the reins. I said, I like the sound of these chords, I think it fits the vibe, whatever you want to do with them, let's do it. And we kind of worked together, right? He would just, because he's such a phenomenal musician, he would write so many different takes of little improvisational little jazz movements and whatnot, and then if we would pick which one we think fits better, we'd put it in and then we'd cater it, and it couldn't have been an easier process. You know, I know a lot of people, they send out requests to composers over the internet, and you know, it takes them forever to get back, but you know, just being able to sit in the room with him and we both work on it together, it was very fast. You know, we finished it in just a couple of hours, and it was this very fun process, and I think it was so unfiltered. It was just me and him touching it, so I think it really helped out, and it's very true to the film, and I think it's super Holmesy, the soundtrack, and it's super it's just mature, and it's classy, and I think it fits perfectly with what I was going for in the film. I think the purpose of making these films is just simply for the enjoyment of it, right? You know, we're not asking for anything, we're not asking for any money, we're not asking for any help, because we want to enjoy ourselves, right? The more people involved and the more hassle, it takes some of the fun out of it. And you know, if we kind of take a step back out of cinema even and just look at life, like what is the point of life? I think it's just to enjoy it as much as you can, and you know, do experience as much as you can, and you can work a lot faster and experience a lot more things when you don't need permission. You just ask for forgiveness instead, and you don't need money. You just use what you have at hand instead. I think art is just like a mirror held up to you. It's a reflection of life. Like it's unfortunate that there's not enough time in life to experience everything, but you know, humans are all more or less the same. We all feel the same. We all have the same set of emotions, and the power of art is that even if you don't experience something firsthand, you have no experience in this, you know, just allowing somebody's vision to impact you, you can kind of get a sense of feeling, and you get to experience what they experienced, right? You know, we don't have enough time in life to experience everything and to meet everybody, even though we would all love to meet every single person in the world and get to know them. We just don't have enough time. And I think that's what the purpose of art is. It's to get to know somebody on, you know, a little bit deeper than the surface level as fast as you can. I'd say don't be held up by the things you can't control, and don't worry about the obstacles in the future and that are in your way. Just go out and make something, like right now. Like it doesn't matter if it's just you in a room, like at least you're doing something. Don't be afraid of, you know, of all the things. Like you have to just take a step, right? Like nobody just got pulled, you know, off the bus by Hollywood and said, hey, come make a film. Like they had to make the first steps by themselves, and I think that's super important, right? And just to kind of let your sensibilities change a little bit. You know, everybody wants to make something, but they want to make it on their terms. They want to make it with the best lighting and the best cameras that they can get a hold of, but you know, you're going to be waiting forever at that point. So if you really want to start in this career, or you really want to make a film or make any type of art, you have to just do it, and you'll eventually get better and better and better at it. But don't wait, just go make something with your friends and go have fun, because that's the whole purpose of it.